have been here before. If you remember, Mr. Jesse Stewart. He's a Army veteran, a combat veteran, Ranger. So he'll talk to you a little bit about what he does. But our featured guest for today, who will be speaking to us, is Jason Wolle. He's a member of the U.S. National Snowboard team. Just got to see a clip of his next voice on the half pipe. This is pretty good. But I think beyond that, I think what he'll also talk to is some of the setbacks and challenges that he's faced, which I think all of us can relate to. So we'll look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to speak to us. And the floor is yours.
Thanks, Colonel Hunt. Appreciate it. All right, well, I'm going to start off, like I said, or Colonel Hunt said, my name is Major Retired Jesse Stewart. I had the honor of being one of the first officers in history to go from second lieutenant to major all at Fort Bragg without having left, and I paid the price for it. Starting first class C, I'm not going to attempt to butcher your name, which, by the way, I have not called you by your correct pronunciation of your name since we met. I just realized today, so I super apologize for that. She sent me a list of questions of stuff that you guys were concerned about with your transition out, and I was one of those guys that did not get an opportunity for something like this. And so what I told her, I said, well, I think if I just kind of tell the TED Talk that I did in a more elevated position, we can kind of answer a lot of stuff, and I'd be more than happy to give you guys my contact information, have as a resource in the past. But everything that happened with me, from childhood to serving in the military to how I reacted to getting out of the military, ultimately led me to having friends like this guy right here, which I literally put on the same level as my fellow Rangers that I served with. In fact, I tell them all the time they're my little Rangers, and I will go to bat for them anytime, any day. And so that's what the intent is for today. So I was grew up typical product of divorce kid, beat around a little bit by my stepdads that I had, and ran to the Army. Parents both were enlisted, grandfather was enlisted. My service goes all the way back to the French Indian War. My great-granddaddy times 14 was one of the original Rogers Rangers. If you ever seen Patriot, I was made famous by that. So there's a little bit of family pressure to go that route. I tried to enlist, and my parents threatened to just go out a day and a half, and then had to go back to the University of Washington because my biological mother got sick. This is 1998, so I ended up staying there. And right before I started my senior year, I just had my first malfunction of a parachute as a cadet at Fort Bragg. Came back, and I went up to New York City to go see my aunt and uncle. And on 9/9/2001, right before the start of my senior year, I went up and had brunch up on top of the World Trade Center, and got an airplane that afternoon, went back to start my senior year at the University of Washington, all motivated to be an infantry officer like every ROTC cadet is back then. And then, of course, 5:13 a.m., I was down in the weight room, and I watched Twin Towers blow up that I'd just been on top of a couple days prior. And so I got commissioned, was branched infantry, we got a chance to go right to the basic course, but was the only non-West Point officer, and I was a dark horse. And you know what? I said, okay, all these guys had best opportunity for military education, at least in the last 4 years. They've had everything set up for them. I can't compete with that. So what can I compete with? Okay, let me find something different. And that became my motto my entire career after that, was trying to find what's different and no one else is doing. Because if you're running a race with a bunch of thoroughbreds and you're trying to keep up and do the same thing they're doing, you're not going to have a chance. And that was when I got my nickname, the Dark Horse. There's a unit called Task Force 300, and got a chance to command a troop in there, Charlie Troop, and went through and lost 14 of my Rangers in my first deployment as a 26-year-old commander. I was wounded 3 times alone on that deployment, and had to have my left knee reconstructed completely when I got back. And bottom line, I had not dealt with my trauma, and when I went to go try and talk to someone, the doc basically told me, and this is 2007, so the Army thankfully has changed, but he told me, listen, if you go talk to somebody, you're going to lose your top secret security clearance, you're going to lose your command, and you're never going to lead Rangers again in combat. And so he said, here you go. He gave me a big bottle of little blue pills, your Xanax. And the only directions I was given was, whenever you feel like you're on edge, take these. Well, guess what? I was on edge every minute of the day. And before I knew it, I was taking, how many medics are in here? Okay, so I was taking upwards of 20 milligrams of Xanax a day in combat. Okay, any medics, is that blowing your mind a little bit? Okay, that was what I was doing. And the last guy that I lost, my guy that I convinced to extend and died the day after he was supposed to start Boston College, when I went to do his memorial service, General McChrystal and General Petraeus, General Cass, Jesse, how are you keeping your shit together? And what they didn't know was I'd taken 10 milligrams of Xanax in order to get up on that stage. But I simply replied, because Rangers lead the way, sir. So I get back from that deployment. Wasn't really a drinker, even though my family helped start Jack Daniels back in the 1800s. The first time I had that drink of alcohol, obviously for those that actually know that benzodiazepines work on your brain the same way that alcohol does, I was a full-blown alcoholic. But I had found a secret. I could drink at night when no one could see me, and I could take the prescribed benzos during the day. And I was doing whatever I could do to just stay in the fight, and more importantly, not anyone see how bad I was sucking and how bad I was hurting. And the way that stuff works, and if you think about like PTSD and substance abuse, because every single person that drinks or uses drugs, they're using it for a reason, often to suppress it. It's like a pressure cooker, right? Inside that pressure cooker is the PTSD. The alcohol or the substance is that lid. And what happens when you don't release that valve properly? It blows up in your face. And so I did another combat deployment as a commander, came back from that deployment, and unfortunately I got picked up 2 years early for major without going. I ended up losing my son. And so I just come back from deployment, and once again, did not affect me. I would not tell anybody that it affected me. And that was my badge of honor. Everybody looked at me for. So I have knee surgery 2 and 3, get through it, and then I got selected to be General Carson's aide for him to shut down Iraq. Incredible American. If you don't know who he is, I encourage you to Google him and look at some of his leadership speeches. In fact, Jason and Jackson are getting an opportunity to do a video conference with him tomorrow. He selected me to be his aide, and I wanted to get my knee checked out one more time. So the key to this is my entire brand and identity up to that point was being an Army Ranger, Army officer, being of service to our country. Going to that last surgery, they were just going to go in and clean up my knee, make sure I was good to go for the deployment. I wake up, and my whole knee is wrapped up like I just had a reconstruction, and that's what happened. You're being retired. So I'm 31 years old, think I'm going to do 40 years essentially in the military, and it was done. It was over. I'm sure you guys can relate to that, especially for those of you that are getting ready to transition out. Thought you're going to do 20 years, 30 years maybe, 35, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And so when I retired, the way they looked at me was like I didn't have an opportunity to do something like this. It was first of all Sergeant Major and Colonel and S3 and all the NCOs that run this place. Thank you for that, because guarantee you're going to save a guy like me a lot sooner than I was able to help myself. And so I retired, and what the civilian world thought they were getting was a 31-year-old retired major that had 2 master's degrees and had nothing wrong with them. Well, the civilian world was up for a little bit of a surprise. And I'll tell you what, every boss that I had the first 3 years I was out ended up leaving the company that I was working at. I made their lives a living hell. And for me, it's like, you know what, they're just not meeting the standards. But that's not what it's about, right? It's about meeting people where they are. That's what our job is as soldiers. So fast forward, I had developed a patent to track every soldier on the battlefield or contract with the government. My wife files for divorce, and everything just completely went down underneath me. Fast forward to June 2017, and I was telling Sergeant First Class C this. Finally, the number of suicides in my unit matched the number that I had lost, 14. So I commanded a company of 149 Rangers, 14 lost, 14 to suicide at that point. And I finally realized, and I was drinking probably about a fifth and a half of Jack a day at that point. And I finally realized if I don't do something about this, I'm going to become a statistic, and more importantly, a lot more other guys are going to leave. Our motto in the Rangers is Rangers lead the way. And I had not been leading the way for my guys since I got down. And so I volunteered to go to a VA hospital, and I went to a VA place to humble myself. And I went in there, and I go in, and they're like, hey, you're the highest ranking person you got here. I said, listen, I'm a vet, and that's all I want to be for 30 days. And I got frustrated, I locked myself in a classroom. And when I would come talk to guys like this, I would tell them about living life on the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual plane of existence. Sound familiar? Probably. Okay, so I would tell them, if you live this way, you'll be able to bounce back from these injuries that you get, the setbacks you get, etc. But I wasn't living it myself. And so I went to that room, and I wrote down on a big whiteboard, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Because everybody tells you you got to do it the VA way, or the WTB way, or whatever to fix yourself, or the the 12-step way, or the CrossFit way, or the church way. And I realized the only way I was going to survive from this was if I developed my own program based off those four planes of existence. And I wrote down all the resources I had: so mental, VA, TRICARE, private insurance, etc. Emotional, I just skipped. The physical, I said, CrossFit, going and keeping up with guys like this in the gym, all that stuff. And then spiritual, my own path to God. And I sat back after 2 hours of writing on a full whiteboard, because the only thing I hate more than alcohol is awkward silences and white space on a calendar or a whiteboard. Sat back, I was holding my hand up like this. What I was doing was I was covering up the emotional plane of existence, because I had nothing from there. Can anyone relate with isolating? Okay, I had isolated to perfection. And once I realized, you know what, I can't leave that empty. And so I got up I wrote 12-step groups on there because I knew I'd have to go to them. It was something. I was like, you know what, I'll go make a new friend every night. I'll change his life, even if mine isn't changed. As soon as I did that, I had what I can only describe as an LSD-influenced vision of a phoenix bird. You guys know what the phoenix bird is in Greek mythology? When it reaches this culmination in life, it blows into a big ball of fire, goes down to the ground, and out of the ashes of good rises something new. So I realized the only way I was going to survive this was if I gave up my identity as an Army Ranger, as a chief operating officer, as a college professor, and rebuild from the bottom up, and go to that hell that my men had gone to and attempt to bring some of them back along with myself. Key word, helping myself first, focusing on being the best version of myself first before I go try to save everybody else in the world. So shortly after that, reconnected with these guys, told them about this story, started getting a little more honest and vulnerable, and started working pretty much exclusively. You would have told me 4 years ago when I first started working with US Ski and Snowboard that the half-pipe team would have been a little band of Rangers that I would have related to. I would have told you were crazy. But I'll tell you what, if you want to think about it this way, think about a Ranger mission. Okay, we come in hot on the helicopter, right? This guy, he comes hot in on the pipe. Okay, I do my move to the breach point, he does his first jump. I do the first explosive breach, he does his first explosive trick. Then the firefight comes, his third big trick. And then sensitive side exploitation, he cleans up with one last trick. And then I get on the helicopter, he exits out of the pipe and gives me a high five as he's coming out. It's amazing that once you just let all your own pride and all your own shit go, what can end up happening in your life? And I can tell you honestly, this 38-year-old retired Ranger, a big reason why he was able to come back from the hell that he came back through is due to 18 and 19-year-old kids at the USC and Snowboard. That while we may have led the way in combat, they're leading the way in peacetime. And it just absolutely honors me that a guy like this, on his break, because he just got done with the competition season, he's about ready to get his butt smoked at Mammoth for a month, jumping into airbags. He's taking the time to come down here, and after he won the USASA championship a couple weeks ago at Copper Mountain, he comes up to me and says, Jesse, let's go do a victory lap. So we go do our victory lap, and we get off, and he says, you know what? I want to come to Fort Carson. I want to go see those wounded warriors like you were. I want to go to the VA and see the wounded veterans like you are now. And you know how much that touches my heart, that a guy like this would take that time at 19 years old. These are the type of guys and girls that are going to be representing us, the 2022 Olympics and then 2026 Olympics, which hopefully come back here to the United States. So with that being said, I'm going to let Jason introduce himself, talk a little bit about his background, and then we're going to go into a little Q&A session and let him answer some questions from me, and then open it up to you guys. But listen, this guy, he's not your typical professional athlete. Okay, if you DM him on Instagram, I guarantee you he'll get back to you. Okay, he's coached the same way. JJ Thomas, he's verified, blue check mark, whatever that important stuff is, has over 28,000 people to follow. He answers every single direct message that people send him. Why? Because these guys care about service, and they care about leading the way we did. And now, they just want to give back. So with that, I'll introduce you to Jason Wolle.
Hey guys, it's nice to meet you all. So, as you know, I'm Jason Wolle. I'm on the US Snowboard half-pipe team. And first, I just want to start off by saying thank you all for your service. I really appreciate all that you've done, because if you hadn't done it, I wouldn't be able to snowboard. So, segueing into how I got started, I was born in Fort Collins, pretty much a Colorado local for my whole life, and I've been snowboarding since the age of 2 years old-ish. I've been competing internationally for the past 6 or 7 years. So I'm 19 now, so I've got a couple really good contests under my belt and a couple good seasons. Unfortunately, I have been in and out of the ER because snowboarding is not, the safest sport. You learn a lot from falling, and sometimes you fall a little too hard, you end up in the hospital. So I've broken this wrist, I've broken this wrist, I've dislocated this elbow, broken my back, broken my collarbone. I've been around, I know kind of how the injuries go. But back to my story, throughout all of those injuries, I've been on and off the contest season. I've missed actually a couple seasons due to injuries, and just this past year is kind of when I've figured out that I'm a little bit better than I thought I was at snowboarding, and really hit my stride when it came to contests and to riding and to learning new tricks, probably because I grew up, became 19, kind of got older, built up some muscle. But after that, I this is my first year on the U.S. snowboard team, so I'm technically what's called a rookie on the snowboard team, but I'm a pro athlete, so I compete at an international level with all the big dudes. I used to compete against Sean White back when he rode half pipe, and I was 13th on the list. They invite the top four in the United States to the Olympics for the Olympic team, and I was 13 on my first year on the U.S. team, so that was awesome. But living in Colorado my whole life, I have been training and snowboarding at Copper, and I've met a bunch of really awesome people, including Jesse when I first got on the team, and that's all kind of culminated into me visiting Fort Carson and the base here. So this is my second visit, and when I first came, I met a bunch of really awesome people, and they mentioned the Wounded Warriors program, and they thought that I would be a great kind of example to talk to you guys about maybe returning to duty or returning to civilian life, because I've been through injuries as well, and maybe not as severe or as traumatic as yours, but injuries all the same, and we can talk about certain processes that I go through mentally, and that might help you in some way. So that is why I am here today.
Awesome, Jason. Thanks. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to do a little facilitated Q&A based off some of the visits that I've done that soldiers and veterans have tended to want to hear. And then after that, we're going to open it up for a Q&A. And the rule is that if no one asks questions, Jason and I get to ask random questions to you guys. So it's your call. I'm going to do that, so I suggest you start thinking your top 3 questions in your head. I already talked to Sergeant Major, said that was all good, he liked the idea, as long as he wasn't called on. All right, so first question I'll talk about, and I know, and Jason, I ask you this because the resiliency-based thing is a big buzzword within the military these days. Every program's got the resiliency program, and I believe you guys have one as well. But you've heard me talk about resiliency-based living from my standpoint of the importance of living a balanced plane of existence across the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And as athletes or rangers, we tend to say, as long as I've got a high PT score, as long as I can beat everybody on the run, I'm good to go. The mental, emotional, and spiritual don't matter. So I was wondering if you could talk about that, given the fact that you've got to have the strength in order to do that. You've also got to have the mindset. You do sometimes 3 or 4 flips up in the air and then 2 or 3 twists. How do you approach that resiliency-based living?
So when it comes to resiliency-based, as an athlete, I try and stay as balanced as possible. So, I try and hit the gym, and I try and be mentally strong for my contests, but I also really try and link up with my friends and talk to them, because the pressure of being an athlete in a contest at that high of a level is pretty intense. So reaching out to other people and talking to them really helps me kind of stay centered. And I don't really have a spiritual plane quite yet. I'm not really super religious, but I really think that linking up with other people can be spiritual in some way. So just talking to other people really helps me in linking up with my teammates. And I am in an individual sport, but I have a team, and I compete against my team members. Lucas Foster, who is another one of my rookie team guys, we battle head to head every single contest, but we're still the best of friends. So building that relationship and having that friendly competition, as well as working hard in the gym and being mentally strong for contests, but also being emotionally connected to your friends and family is really important. So that's what keeps me balanced when it comes to resiliency.
So, Jason, you hit something there about the team aspect. So obviously within the Army, we've talked a little bit about how the task organization is developed. You got your fire team with your 4 guys, you got your squad with your 9 guys, your platoon with 49, etc. of the route. So with us, the team is everything, because we have to rely on each other to have each other's back in combat, and even in training situations. With you, it's we compete against each other in practice for fun, but when it comes to real thing, that's when we have. So it's basically completely opposite of you. I was wondering if you could talk about that relationship with your teammates in terms of how that helps you up your level.
Mm-hmm. So, as Jesse said, in practice, we are more closely knit, but in contest, we're battling each other for the top spot or the next top spot or the qualifying area. So my teammates and I are friends, and we work together and we push each other, but when it comes to contest day, we're still friends, but we're trying to beat each other. And how do I explain this? it's more of a positive environment than it is, a bad sportsmanship, because, you could get that bad apple where it's like, oh, well, I don't want to talk to you because you beat me in that last contest. That's not how it is with the U.S. team. That's not how we try and work it out. We try and push each other to the next level. So if, say Lucas or my friend Ryan, who is also on the U.S. snowboard team, beats me in a contest, and I'm like, dang, I need to step up my game. I need to push myself to the next level. And then maybe we switch at the next contest, and that pushes, my other teammates / competitors to up their game. So it's kind of like this ladder function in which, we all kind of try and build each other up, even though we're competing against each other for, prize money, sponsorships, awards. All of that is kind of pushed to the side when it comes to, really good friendships and stuff, because in the end, all we really want to do is better each other and better our riding. So that is kind of how I feel about being as a team member in an individual sport.
Okay, I think we were talking about this at the U.S. Open, the t-shirts I wear whenever I work out say you versus you. Mm-hmm. And I talked to you about with me, like up until 2 years ago, my competition was me versus the world and everybody that I could find. And once I was able to turn that competition inward, that's when all of a sudden I realized that as long as I'm focusing on just beating the person I was yesterday, I'll never stop growing. There's no glass ceiling within that. Within your community, especially with Sean White out there, that's kind of the guy that set the standard that potentially will never be broken with 3 straight golds in the half pipe. But what does that mean to you in terms of, keeping that focus on being the best version of yourself, beating that version from yesterday, but at the same time realizing, hey, there's guys that I have to keep knocking off as I go up to the top?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we really talk about in U.S. Snowboard team is goal setting. And, it is obviously a goal to win the Olympics or to, be the best that you could be and win that contest or do these individual things. But one of the things that we really like to focus on is goals for yourself against yourself. Because, yeah, it's nice to have that, oh, this is where I want to be, but, how are you going to improve yourself to get there? And that's what we talk about, those kind of personal goals. So for me specifically, it's, training in the gym or working out in the summer, because, I always want to be better, and to be a better snowboarder, you have to be stronger. I'm pretty sure it translates to being, in the military, you kind of want to build yourself up, to be tough, and that's part of it. That's a personal goal that you might have. But another personal goal is, hey, I might want to really reach out to my friends and stay in contact with them. I travel a lot in the winter. I go all over the place trying to Switzerland, so staying in contact with friends and family to me is super important. It keeps me grounded. That's a personal goal that I have. But when it comes to snowboarding, my personal goal is I want to be better than I was yesterday. And that's always how it is. Even if I'm having, a bad day or I feel off, I want to get something done. I want to accomplish something so that I feel successful for that day. And it could be, as small as, hey, I hiked up the half pipe up and down 20 times, or hey, I waxed my board tonight to take care of my gear, or hey, I went out to dinner with some of my teammates because, we wanted to have that, camaraderie aspect to go around. Or finally, I went bigger than I was yesterday. I did a bigger, better trick, so always trying to improve yourself to get to that ultimate goal, but what you really focus on and what we really kind of talk about in the U.S. snowboard team is having those personal goals. So.
Awesome, thanks. So one thing we've talked a little bit about throughout the season, because you suffered some injuries that have resulted in not being able to do as well as perhaps you want to do on the World Cup standings, but can you talk about like your take on failure and how you've dealt perhaps with a single failure that you can think of in your mind?
Well, for me specifically, failure for me has always been injuries. Unfortunately, I am accident prone. I fall quite a bit, and that has caused me to miss contests, miss opportunities. I broke this wrist 2 years ago, and I missed the biggest contest that I could go to at the time, which was Junior Worlds, and I missed it. And that was the last year I could have done it, so I'm too old for Junior Worlds now. I can never do that contest again. So when I broke my wrist and missed that contest, it was a huge failure for me. I felt super down in the dumps. I was worried that I wasn't going to be invited to the highest level of competition again, because that's all points based, and if you miss a contest, you lose points. And then, I was worried because my arm's not going to be strong enough. I'm not going to be able to grab. So I was kind of down in the dumps for a little while, and I actually reached out to a couple of my friends and talked to them about it. And, one of the things that really helped me was going out and, rehab and focusing on that and trying to better my arm, but also, hanging out with my friends and talking to them about how I was struggling. And one of the things that really helped me was I have a close friend in Winter Park that really kind of motivated me, and it was like, you're gonna be fine, you're gonna be able to work through this, and if you stay true to your personal goals, those personal goals of making yourself better, you'll come back stronger, because when you break a bone, it heals back stronger, supposedly. So I haven't broken this wrist again since then, which is nice. But that's kind of one of the ways I dealt with failure and with struggle is, reaching out to friends and family, and also to just focus on those personal goals, because that's what really got me back into the game. And the season after I broke this wrist was one of the best seasons I ever had. I got third in the Nationals that year, and I ended up doing my first season of Grand Prix, and I got on the U.S. team the season after. Plus, that was the year the Olympics were around, and I got 13th in the qualifying. So it was amazing to come back after breaking my wrist and missing the biggest contest of my season to, come right back and have a really great season.
Awesome. Well, Jason, over the course of this season, you've had the opportunity to have a very interesting cheering section that's been at a lot of you guys' events. So one of the things that I've done is I've been bringing veterans and some of my military buddies up to Copper Mountain to watch competitions to get some very special access to watching these guys blow some huge tricks out of the water. I mean, I think Jason probably got his biggest air he'd ever gotten at the last event out of the wrap. But I was wondering,
18 feet.
18 feet, there we go. So which is only a foot higher than I can go. Just kidding. So what does it mean to you when you have that group of veterans that are down there at the bottom of that pipe rooting you on?
Mm-hmm. So it's always nice to have someone there supporting you at a contest or at an event, and it really means a lot when they're a veteran. I've had military family before, and it was my grandpa, my dad's dad, and having you guys come out, because as I said at the beginning when I introduced myself, what you guys have done out in the field has allowed me to travel the world and snowboard and compete at an international level and work for the U.S. team. So to have that kind of support group come and support me at a contest and where I try and do my very best for that day and that moment means a whole bunch, because I know that everyone else that's a military veteran went out and did that for when they were deployed. They went out and tried to be the best they were for that day, and get their mission accomplished. So that's what my job is when I have a snowboard contest, is I go out and I try and win, try and get my mission accomplished. So to put on a great show and to have you guys come out and watch and see what I do, so that I can make your day a little bit better by watching my contest, and hopefully I win, but I might fall, and to have you guys there to support me is not only a huge honor, but I really thank you guys for it. So.
All right, so with that being said, let's flip that around. Of us coming to you, you've now come out here twice to Colorado Springs before the season started, before your first pro season on the U.S. team, and first thing you did after the season was over, you came right back. Mm-hmm. And so I wondered if you could talk about what that means to you of coming back here.
Mm-hmm. Well, when the first time I came to Fort Carson, I met with a bunch of people, and we talked about building military advisory board and building a relationship between the U.S. snowboard team and the military. And one of the things that I really wanted to focus on was veterans and people that were wounded in action, because those are the people that are going to be returning to their daily lives, or going back and trying to go back to, I say normal, but it's really hard to go back to normal. So coming back and really kind of connecting with you guys is super important to me, because I don't want you to feel alone or struggling, because everyone else feels that alone and struggling. So to come back and give my 2 cents and maybe get some insight from you guys, it's a huge motivator for me. So not only am I trying to help you, but you guys are also helping me. Just by me coming here and talking to you, I feel motivated, and I really want to work harder this season to prove that I'm not some 19-year-old kid coming to talk at a military function when I've got no bang for my buck. I want to work hard, and I want to prove that I can use not only your presence as motivation, but also to help you guys. So.
Well, people often ask me, like, how do you do what you do? And I say, you know what? In what world does a 38-year-old, 340% disabled, retired Army Ranger end up linking up with, 17 to 21-year-old Olympic athletes? What world is that? Our world. And I'll tell you one of the things, so I've been speaking on this Habitude Warrior conference tour here recently, and I just brought J.J. Thomas, Jason's coach and 2002 bronze medalist and personal coach to Shaun White, last 3 Olympics. I brought them out there with me, and the theme was the warrior athlete mindset. And so I went up there and I spoke from the warrior side. They went up there and spoke from the athlete side. At the end, we did a panel. We were able to really show it's warrior athlete mindset. And with these civilians that I'm talking to, I'm basically telling them, like, hey, listen, this is not something that's just special for us. This is something that anybody can get. And as you guys either make your transition out or you try to go to a different MOS, or whatever, I encourage you to reach outside of yourselves, because listen, I tried the isolation thing, and guess what? It doesn't work, and it's going to lead towards you becoming a statistic. And I'll tell you what, my biggest downfall was my pride refusing to ask for help. And I can tell you now at 38 years old and still having done the stuff that I did, I look at guys like this as mentors, because they are my heroes and they become my heroes. And you know what? They feel like you guys are their heroes. So I encourage you to take this opportunity, ask him. You're probably going to be seeing him on NBC here in a couple of years. And you'd be like, I asked that guy a question. I got a picture with him. I have his autograph right here. In fact, Jason brought some pictures here, and anybody that wants an autograph picture of him, getting some air that I was actually standing right next to my photographer when he took it, so I can tell you that it was massive. But take an opportunity to ask him some questions. And like I said, the only thing I hate more than alcohol is awkward silence.